Linux has come a long way, and before anything else, I need to say this clearly at the start. Comment section में मुझे AI मत बोलो. I am a real human sharing a real experience after actually testing these systems over time. This video is not about hype, not about fanboy wars, and definitely not about repeating what everyone else says. This is about what actually happens when you leave Windows behind in 2026 and try to replace it with Linux that looks and feels like Windows. And I didn't just try one or two distros, I went all in. I tested everything that claims to be Windows-like, everything that promises easy transition, everything that says you won't miss Windows. Most of them failed, some of them came close, and only one actually made me stop going back. At the start, I was skeptical. I've used Windows for years like most people, from basic use to heavier workflows, and the idea of switching always sounded good in theory, but frustrating in practice. Either things broke, apps didn't work, or the system felt unfamiliar in small but annoying ways. But in 2026, Linux is not what it used to be. The ecosystem has matured, hardware compatibility is better, gaming has improved massively, and user interfaces have evolved to mimic what Windows users are already comfortable with. So I decided to test this properly, not just for a few hours, but as a daily driver. The first distro I tried was the one everyone recommends to beginners. It looked clean, modern, and yes, somewhat similar to Windows. The taskbar was there, the start menu style launcher existed, and basic navigation felt familiar. But within a day, I started noticing friction. Simple things like installing software didn't feel intuitive. Yes, there were app stores, but not everything I needed was there. Then came the small annoyances, settings scattered across different menus, inconsistent UI behavior, and random bugs that made the experience feel unfinished. It wasn't bad, but it didn't replace Windows. It felt like I was constantly adjusting instead of just working. Then I moved on to something more visually similar to Windows 10. This one tried harder. The layout was almost identical. Start menu, system tray, file explorer that looked very close to what I was used to. At first it impressed me. I thought maybe this is it. But after a few days, performance issues started showing up. Animations weren't smooth, updates broke small features, and sometimes the system felt heavier than it should. Ironically, something that was supposed to replace Windows ended up feeling less stable than Windows itself. That was disappointing. Next, I tried a distro that claimed to be Windows 11 alternative. This one focused heavily on design. Rounded corners, centered taskbar, modern icons, everything looked beautiful. Honestly, visually it was one of the best experiences. But looks alone aren't enough. The moment I started using it for real tasks, file management, multitasking, running different applications, it started falling apart. Compatibility issues, missing features, and sometimes even crashes. It looked like Windows 11, but it didn't behave like a reliable operating system. At this point, I realized something important. Just copying the look of Windows is not enough. What actually matters is behavior, workflow, and stability. A real replacement needs to feel natural, not just familiar. It should not remind you that you switched, it should just work. So I changed my approach. Instead of chasing Windows clones, I started testing distros that balance familiarity with functionality. That's when things started getting interesting. I found one that didn't try too hard to copy Windows visually, but nailed the experience. The layout was simple, the performance was smooth, and everything worked out of the box. Drivers, updates, software installation, everything felt streamlined. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was using an alternative. I just felt like I was using a good operating system, but I wasn't done yet. I kept testing. Another distro came close. It was fast, lightweight, and very customizable. You could make it look exactly like Windows if you wanted, and that's where I learned another key thing. Linux is not just about what you get, it's about what you can shape. But customization takes time. Not everyone wants to tweak themes, install extensions, and fix small issues manually. A true Windows replacement should work perfectly without needing hours of setup. After trying multiple options, breaking systems, reinstalling again and again, and using each as a daily driver, I finally found the one that actually replaced Windows for me. Not because it looked identical, not because it promised something crazy, but because it delivered consistency. It booted fast, it handled tasks smoothly, updates didn't break things, and most importantly, it didn't get in my way. The difference was subtle but powerful. I stopped thinking about the OS, I stopped comparing it to Windows. I just used my computer. That's when you know it works. Now let's talk about real-world usage, because that's where most Linux distros fail. File management is something people underestimate. On Windows, it's simple and predictable. Many Linux distros overcomplicate it or make it inconsistent. The one that worked for me had a clean file manager, logical structure, and no weird behavior. It respected how I expected things to work. Software installation was another major test. In the past, Linux struggled here, but now things are different. Flatpak, Snap, and improved repositories mean most apps are just a click away. Still, not every distro handles this well. Some make it confusing, some have outdated packages. The one I stuck with had a unified, simple App Store experience. Search, click, install. Done. Performance is where Linux shines, but only if the distro is optimized properly. Some felt bloated, which defeats the purpose. The one that replaced Windows was fast even on average hardware. Boot time was quick, apps launched instantly, and multitasking was smooth. Gaming is a big question. Let's be honest, Windows still dominates here. But Linux in 2026 is not far behind. Proton, compatibility layers, and native support have improved massively. I tested several games, and while not everything worked perfectly, most of what I needed ran without major issues. For a casual or even moderate gamer, it's now completely usable. Then there's stability. This is where most distros fail silently. Everything works fine until an update breaks something. The one that replaced Windows for me handled updates gracefully. No random issues, no broken dependencies, no system crashes after updates. That reliability builds trust. One thing I didn't expect was how much control Linux gives you without forcing it on you. You can go deep if you want, or you can stay at the surface and just use it normally. The best distro understands that balance. It doesn't overwhelm beginners, but still offers power to advanced users. Security is another area where Linux naturally feels stronger. No constant antivirus pop-ups, no background bloat, no unnecessary tracking. It feels cleaner, lighter, and more respectful of the user. Now, I know some people will say, why not just stay on Windows if it works? That's a fair question. And honestly, if Windows works perfectly for you, there's no pressure to switch. But if you're tired of forced updates, system slowdowns, privacy concerns, or just want something more efficient, Linux in 2026 is a serious option. But here's the truth. Most videos won't tell you. Not every Linux distro is worth your time. Many are experimental, unstable, or simply not ready for everyday use. The internet loves to recommend everything, but real usage exposes the flaws. That's why I tested so many. Not for fun, but to find something that actually works in real life, something you can install and forget about, something that doesn't require constant fixing. And that's what I found. Only one distro managed to combine familiarity, performance, stability, and usability in a way that truly replaced Windows. It didn't try to be Windows. It just did everything better in its own way. After weeks of usage, I stopped dual booting. I stopped going back just in case. That's the real test. When you don't feel the need to return, you've found your system. If you're thinking about switching, don't just follow trends. Test properly. Use each distro for a few days at least. Try your real workflow. See what breaks, what works, and what feels natural. Because at the end of the day, the best operating system is not the most popular one. It's the one that disappears while you work. The one that doesn't interrupt, doesn't frustrate, and doesn't slow you down. Linux has reached that point, but only if you choose the right distro. And trust me, I tried them all so you don't have to.